Hello, Defender Nation. Welcome back to another installment of Defender Giants. Our guest today is one of the most renowned members of our career field. He is also an outstanding orator who has been featured on his very own TED Talks and has given great speeches such as my favorite, Hot Fries, which everyone should go and check out. This series would have never been complete without including an interview with this Defender Giant. It was truly an honor to get to speak with him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, number 5, Bob Gaylor. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Gaylor, it is truly an honor, sir. Thank you for taking the time to speak to all of our defenders out here. Now, I've seen all your videos, and I know that you like to make a statement with all your shirts. So please tell us about the shirt that you're wearing today.
Senior Master Sergeant Mark Velasquez. Pleased to do that, a very proud cop. I'm wearing my cop shirt that was given to me at MacDill Air Force Base a couple of years ago, and it says, pinned on the chest, worn in the heart.
That's a great shirt with a great message, pinned on the chest, worn in the heart. I'm going to reach out to one of my MacDill defenders out there and see if they can send me one of those shirts. First question up, Chief. If you don't mind, please tell us how you became into the career field of security police.
Believe it or not, in 1948, when I completed basic training, I left for my first assignment at Waco Air Force Base, not knowing my career field. That was common policy at that time. I went home on leave to Indiana for 10 days, signed in at Waco Air Base on 23 December 1948, and reported to personnel as we had been instructed to do. And a two-stripe at that time called corporal said to me, Gaylor, my job is to find you a career field. And I said I was told that would happen. And he said, matter of fact, you're lucky. He said, I have three choices, and you can pick the one you want. He said, you can be a food service technician, a cook, a firefighter, a military policeman. And at that moment, none of those three really appealed to me. I was looking for something a little more glamorous, if you will. When I delayed, he said, I don't have all day, pick one or I'll pick one for you. And I blurted out, I'll take military police. And I became a cop. No training. Matter of fact, a couple of days later, I performed my first duty guarding the finance building from 1 in the morning to 5 in the morning. With a rifle I had never fired and without any training.
Wow, that is unbelievable that back then they would just give you a gun and post you out as a cop without any training whatsoever. It's pretty crazy. Next question, Chief. I like to ask all my guests, what is a book that they hand out the most, or which is a book that has impacted your life?
I read all kind of leadership books. My gosh, I've read about Schwarzkopf, Kurt LeMay, Chuck Yeager, Bill Russell, the basketball player. Anything on leadership I read, how they become effective leaders. Anything by Ken Blanchard and Paul Hersey. Ken Blanchard's the guy that wrote the books 1 Minute Manager and all the follow-on books. I went to a seminar they conducted in 1968 at Centenary University in Shreveport, and I was so impressed with their presentation that I actually told my boss to order copies of the books to distribute to all the squadron commanders throughout 17th Air Force. So anything by Ken Blanchard, Paul Hersey, anything by Bill O'Reilly, The Killing, killing Reagan, killing Hitler, killing Jesus, killing the rising sun. They're all so well done. They're historical in nature, and I believe them to be very accurate. So anything on leadership. I'm also a great sports fanatic, so I like to read all kinds of sports books.
Ken Blanchard and Paul Hersey are definitely some great recommendations. I'm taking some notes down on those books. Next question, Chief. Do you have a favorite failure, and what did you learn from it?
My favorite story is when I met a board of general officers to compete to be Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. 1977, there were 5 of us chiefs given 30-minute interviews, each with a panel of 2 3-stars and a 4-star. And when it was my turn, I reported in and sat there as they asked questions that I thought were very well framed and very meaningful. And when the 4-star told me that I was dismissed and that the announcement would be made within a few days, my mind was working rapidly. How do I get out of the room gracefully? And I decided to stand up, shake their hand, thank them, and depart. I turned to 3-star, Lieutenant General Bob Mathis, and said, thank you, Colonel Mathis. I called a 3-star general colonel when I was meeting the board to be Chief Master in the Air Force. I stood back up and I said, isn't that great? I came all the way from San Antonio to meet the board, bought a new uniform, got a haircut, shined my shoes. I said, I thought I did fairly well on the questions, and I screw it up trying to get out of the room. I said, may I start over? Sure, go ahead. Thank you, General Mathis. Thank you, General McBride. Thank you, General Davis. And I left. And I thought, well, there go my chances. A pretty big screw up on a very special day. Let me go back just a moment. The first thing you do is admit the mistake. I screwed up. That's the first thing, taking responsibility for your actions. And then asking for permission to correct it and make it right. Believe it or not, General Mathis later told me that that sort of swayed him to vote in my favor. He said he liked the way that I accepted responsibility and corrected the error and in a very poised fashion. So sometimes you can turn things around and make them work in your favor.
Your favorite failure led you to become the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. You definitely did turn that mistake around and showed your character by owning up to the mistake and pressing on. Next question. If you could have a huge billboard anywhere with anything written on it, what would it say?
In the late 70s, I made a trip to Clark Air Base, Philippines, and a Chief Master Sergeant gave me a plaque as a going-away gift for visiting the Philippines, and the plaque is now at the Gaylor Leadership School out at Randolph Air Base. And this is probably what I'd put on a billboard. Good things cometh to those who waiteth, so long as those who waiteth worketh like hell while they waiteth. And I think that has sort of been my philosophy. I have found that if you want to succeed and you want good things to happen, you really got to work at it. You have to invest time, effort. I feel bad for anyone who does not enjoy work. Work is as work is as much fun as play if the conditions are favorable when you get the good feelings of achievement. So I would suggest to anyone, the advice would be to put yourself into work.
That's really great advice, Chief. Good things come to those who wait, but you still have to work for it, definitely. Next question. What are some tips that you use when you start to lose focus?
I have a little, I'm going to show it here in a second, a little thing that I tell audiences you should scotch tape your chest. And when you're driving to work, every time you stop at a red light, look down and see what it says. And I'll hold it up here. It says, what am I being paid to do? What am I being paid to do? Why am I in the Air Force? What is the Air Force paying me to do? You should never lose sight of that. Every time you go to work, what is the Air Force paying me to do? What is my purpose? What is my intent? Why was I hired? Why am I reporting for duty? What is my purpose? I think we should mentally refocus each time, so we never lose track of our purpose. The great leaders of military history never lost focus. I've studied the works of George Patton, Dwight Eisenhower, Douglas MacArthur, all different in personality and style, but one thing they all had in common: they never lost focus. They knew exactly what their purpose and intent was, and nothing could turn them away from that.
That's a great visual aid, but if I taped that to my chest and drove to work in the morning, I'm sure the entry controller would give me some crazy looks. But all around solid advice on what we should keep in mind about what our purpose is and why we're here. It's a great mental exercise to do in the morning, especially if we're having a rough morning or feeling discouraged. Next question. What is one of the best investments that you have made?
Pay yourself first. Always pay yourself first. Whatever you do, pay yourself first. Before you pay anything else, any bill or buy anything, you pay yourself first. I can explain that. When I arrived at Waco Air Base, I had only been there a month or two, and one of my buddies said that he had purchased a small insurance policy from I think the fellow's name was Eddie Champlain or something like that. And I said, tell me about it. Well, make a long story short, I invested $5 a month out of my pay by allotment to Equitable Life Insurance Company. And that I eventually increased it to $10 a month. And about 35 years later, just a few years ago, I cashed that in for $4,400. That allotment continued throughout my 31-year Air Force career. After I'd been in the Air Force less than a year, they had the annual savings bond program, and I invested in a $25 savings bond. They took $18.75 out of my pay, and I got a savings bond every month. And once again, over a period of time, I had quite a stack. Pay yourself first. You know, once you get used to not having, once you invest in a program of savings, you never miss it. You adjust and adapt to the amount of money you have in your hand.
Invest in yourself first. I really like that. I often tell airmen that promote that if their life circumstances don't change, try to consider investing that little bit of extra money that they would be seeing in their paychecks, because they're living without it anyway, so they're never going to miss something that they never had. I agree with that. Chief, next question. What is an unusual habit that you have?
Call me crazy. I like to do anything that makes improvement. Wash a car, wash dishes, shine shoes, mow a yard. Anything where I can look at it and say it looks better than it did before I started. That just gives you a feeling of achievement in a positive way. When you can see the achievement and accomplishment.
That is some great advice and great work ethic, too, to leave things better than how you receive them. Next question. What is some bad advice that you see given out to our airmen these days?
I think inadvertently, maybe, I don't think we did it on purpose, we have taken away the opportunity to falter and fail. We even say it in the creed: I will not falter and I will not fail. And that's bad advice. Creativity, decision making are all primarily focused on probably going through failure. Someone, I think I read, where Thomas Edison had 80 failures of inventing the light bulb before he got one that would light. I think that we should include as we build confidence and pride in a young airman, that we also talk about if you should falter, if you should fail, accept the responsibility for it, and then take steps to correct it. But I look back in my career, I could go on and on about times when my intentions were honorable, but they didn't work out the way I had planned. But I recall that great learning took place from the failure or the faltering that took place. I think when you give someone false confidence or false pride, you're leading them to potential damage in some way. I think that the ability to overcome when things don't quite go right is a very advantageous training program.
I agree. If we completely succumb to not allowing for failures or mistakes, we do a tremendous disservice to our airmen and stifle the growth of leadership. Next question. Chief, what do you do when you feel overwhelmed?
Believe it or not, I listen to my own words. I've met people in life who are great instructors in telling other people what to do and then turn around and violate the very thing. My gosh, the television is full of, for example, evangelists and others who ask for your contributions, and then you find out later that they have misbehaved in a very bad way. But I have found that if I'm going to stand and tell somebody to do this, do that, that I should probably model it, or I should probably be the first one to do that. So I basically try to follow my own advice, and it works. I rarely lose focus, but I just think it's confidence in oneself, and confidence and pride come from achievement, and achievement comes from training, and achievement comes from ethical frameworks. What do you believe? What is your foundation? What are you made of? What is your direction? What is your goal? What do you believe? What are your values? Honesty and courage and loyalty. Those are more than just words, they're behavior patterns. So I think that somewhere in there, there's opportunity for success for everyone.
When you feel overwhelmed, you practice what you preach. You go back and look at your own words and try to embody them. That's great stuff. Chief, lots of great responses. I appreciate it. The floor is yours for any final comments.
I've met thousands of cops over the years. My gosh, thousands and thousands. And I would say the majority are role models. We're great performers with great ethic, great values, and I'm just proud that I wore that badge. I wore an armband from 48 till 1956. That's when the shield first came out. And I'll close with one of my favorite stories when I talk about trust. In 1956, enlisted people were not receiving a lot of trust. It was still, you have to, the belief was you have to watch an enlisted person every minute. When the badge first came out, I recall being so proud to replace the armband with the shield. We weren't allowed to keep it. Every time I went on duty, I went to the armory, checked out my pistol and my shield, and then tried to pin it on in time for guard mount. And one time I just casually asked my sergeant, why don't you just issue us our badge, and that way we'll be wearing when we come to duty. And the answer was, no, Gaylor, you'll be trying to get in movies free. You'll be trying to ride the city bus without paying. You'll be flashing your badge all around, no, and quit asking stupid questions. And I recall thinking, I'm confused. You let me guard a multi-million-dollar airplane, you won't give me my badge. We were not allowed to keep our badge, I recall, until about 1962 when I got to Japan. By then I was a master sergeant. Now I go to speak to academy students. I see them proudly wearing their security forces badge. I see firemen wearing their shield. I think that's great. We earned that trust over the years, and that's a big change than my early enlisted days. So trust and confidence are earned. One last thing, there is the Security Forces Association, and I'm a chartered member. And the headquarters is here in the city, San Antonio. Retired Colonel John Probst is the executive director. What a great organization. And I would truly encourage those who proudly wear the badge or who ever have, Guard, Reserve, Active, Retired, to consider membership in that great organization of fellowship and camaraderie and keeping up to date and keeping in touch with cops that you have worked with over the years. The ladies in the career field, we introduced women to the career field in the mid-70s. And there was considerable concern and consternation, and not everyone applauded it. My gosh, what a tremendous contribution they have made to the career field, including my very dear friend, General Mary Kay Hertog, who at one time was top cop. Just an example of the contributions that the female who wear the shield have made over the many years. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you. Be safe.
Chief, again, it was such an honor to speak with you. I know this means the world for myself, along with all the other defenders out there who probably wear that badge. We always have enjoyed your talks and genuine care for our career field and our defenders. For anyone interested in joining the Security Forces Association, please see the link in the description below. Until next time, to all the defenders out there, thank you again for what you do each and every single day.